reach that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. A little about me. My name is Andrew Smith. I'm from Wasilla, Alaska is where I'm at right now. I know some of you are in Utah. Alexei said she's from Oregon. I have a couple other people from Alaska as well that are participating today. I was a very, very shy child growing up, and about the age of 12, I decided that I wanted to do something, and it wasn't that I all of a sudden became an extrovert or anything. I was still a little bit introverted, but everybody else in my family, I come from a large family there's 10 kids in my family, but everybody else in my family had something that they did. You know, my brother had stage managed for numerous plays, and he was only 16, and my sister did a lot of that as well, and my younger sister did a lot of dancing, and they all had their thing, and I was kind of that quiet little one that nobody really knew anything for or about. You know, some of you might know what I'm talking about. And I decided at about 12 that I wanted to do something. And so I tried out for a local production of Alice in Wonderland, and I was very, very lucky. I got one of the leading roles. It was not Alice in Wonderland. I did not play Alice. I played the Cheshire Cat. And I was very lucky to have a director that has kind of served as a mentor to me over the years, and she was the one that introduced me first to Shakespeare, which I credit as being my reason for doing everything that I'm doing right now. I started mentoring classes at 14. Like I said, this director, she introduced me to Shakespeare, and I started loving Shakespeare. I didn't know a whole lot about him, but I loved him, and I wanted to learn more. And so what I did was I actually signed up with another lady, Nathan's mom, actually. I signed up with her to go down to the lower 48, which is what Alaskans refer to as the mainland states below us, to go down to the lower 48 and take training for a Shakespeare class through the Leadership Education Mentoring Institute. And that fall, I started co-teaching with her, and I've been teaching Shakespeare and poetry and stuff like that ever since. The next year after that, I started teaching it by myself, and since then I've just kind of been adding on a little bit as I go, you know. And I just wanted to talk to you really quickly about a few of the reasons that I mentor. The first is that it's just really, really fun. I just really, really enjoy Shakespeare and acting and theater and every aspect of it, and I want my students to be able to enjoy that as well, and I want to kind of give that love to them. The second reason is kind of to share my knowledge. You know, I don't pretend to know a ton. I don't, but I do want to share a little bit of what I do know so that you guys can take that knowledge and utilize it in your own lives. And the third reason, and the big main reason that I mentor, is to discover genius. I've found way, way too often in today's society that teachers underestimate their students, that parents underestimate their children, and that the youth themselves underestimate themselves. And it's kind of sad. Have you ever, I don't know if some of you are those people or some of you know those people that just kind of, you know, they don't really have a plan for life. They're just going to go through it. They're going to go through the steps and go to college maybe, and they don't really know what they're going to major in or do, you know. And it's sad sometimes to see that. And so my goal in mentoring is to try to help you discover a little bit of what your genius is, because I know that you guys are geniuses, that there's incredible amounts of things that you can do. And so my goal is to help you discover a little bit of that and to help you utilize that for your personal mission and what you want to do in your life. So I want to hear really quickly about you. And I want you to think about one interesting thing about you. I don't care if it's the fact that you live in Alaska or the fact that you enjoy pretending that keys are spaceships. Just think of one interesting thing about you. And I'm actually gonna go down the list. I'll start with you, Alexei. If you could just tell me one interesting thing about you, that would be great.
I play soccer.
Alexei plays soccer. How long have you been playing soccer?
Since I was probably about 6.
Wow. And you're
Officially.
about what, 14 now? I think you said 15, okay. That's cool. So you're really good at it then.
Well, maybe not.
I played soccer for a couple of years. I used to love it, but that was when I was about 10, so I haven't played since.
Fun.
Okay, Julia, how about you?
Okay. I'll give you something really interesting. I am slightly obsessed with knee-high, horizontally striped socks.
Wow, I don't know what to say to that. That's awesome. Okay, Mason, I just unmuted you. I think you arrived a little bit late, but I just
Yeah, just a
unmuted
bit.
you. Okay.
Thank you.
So if you look in your top left corner, you'll see a green button that has a picture of a microphone on it. You can
Yep, I
mute
see
and
it.
unmute yourself with that button. But I just want you to go ahead. How about one interesting thing about you, Mason?
One interesting thing about me.
Yes.
Well, I'm one of those few guys who actually likes chick flicks, and
Sweet.
I enjoy watching them. And it's just, I don't know, it's lots of fun to watch chick flicks.
That's awesome. I am a chick flick man too. I have lots of friends that are girls that don't like chick flicks, and that's upsetting to me because. Okay, moving on. Nathan, how about you?
The types of people that come here. Goodness. I guess something interesting about me is I live in Alaska, and I'm really, really, really pale.
That's interesting. Okay,
But, you know, it'll work.
Rebecca.
I sing opera.
You sing opera? Oh, that's
Awesome.
awesome. Very awesome. Really quick question. Do you like to go by Rebecca or Becca or something else?
Maybe Rebby.
Either.
Either or?
Either. Becca.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to move on real quick because we're already running out of time because we got started late, so I'm going to rush through things. I think some of you may have gotten an email, and I want you really quickly to chat message these favorite quotes that you have, if you brought any, to me in your questions box. Oh. Just FYI, if you guys probably did not get this, but Heather's been chatting on the questions box interesting things about her as well, and I think she said that her oldest children are triplets and she's twins, which is really fascinating. So I think she might have beaten Nathan on the fact that he lives in Alaska. I'm going to just chat her. FYI. Okay, I'm going to look over these really quickly. Oh, the problem is there's just so many. I have like this little teeny panel to read these. And I am dead, as dead I well may be. Becca, that's a cool one. Wait, okay, here you go. Once there was a pig, he was very big. He ate all of the eggs and grew really big legs. Nathan, you are brilliant. Oh, I can't even read all these. I'm going to look over these afterwards because that is one of the things that really fascinates me is what other people find to be very cool. Okay, so what we're going to cover in this webinar, here's what we're going to cover. The goal of this webinar is to allow you to realize a little bit that poetry exists in more than one format, and to begin to write poetry unique to your life story. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but we're going to talk about what poetry is, what to write about, words to use, poetry. We're going to talk about some poetry building activities. We're going to talk a little bit about meter. That seems to be what hangs everybody up when writing poetry. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your inner poet. Okay, so I want you guys, I need somebody. Let's have Nathan. Nathan, can you define a classic for us? What is a classic?
Okay. Generally, at least in the circles which we would participate in, a classic is considered something which you would read or watch more than once, and each time you would gain more knowledge or more inspiration from.
Okay, so here's a question. Are classics the same for everybody?
No.
No. I think one of my favorite instances of this is one of my classic books is Battlefield Earth. And that may or may not be a classic for Rebecca or for Alexei, okay? It is Alexei, right? I'm just making sure that I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Okay, so it's not the same for everybody. Rebecca, you want to take a shot at defining love for us?
I don't know, that one's really tough. Love is the basis for, I don't know, all emotion, all human, human reality, I guess.
I really like that. You should type that in the question box to me so that I can save it for later and use it in something, because that's awesome. Love is one of those words that's kind of very difficult to describe. People kind of just throw it around and nobody really can pin down what exactly it means. How about hate? Mason, what do you think about hate?
Ooh, hate. I don't know. That isn't something I'm all that familiar with. Hate. Well, hate is, it's not the opposite of love. That would be apathy. But hate would be more like, I don't know, deep feelings against for some reason. Feelings of anger or rage or, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to characterize that.
It's tough, isn't it? It's when you get into these words, you kind of have to really deeply think about what they mean and what they mean to you, and they mean different things to different people, right? Oh, let's see here. I have one more. Beauty. Alexei, what do you think about beauty?
That is not an easy one for me.
Why don't I take over really quickly? It's tough. But what if I say? How do I say it? You've heard the saying, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder." It's kind of like that. It's just like classic and love and hate. It's different for everybody, and so it's one of those words that you just can't pin down. And so it's tough. It's tough. Julia, you want to go for the last one? I have one more for you. Define poetry.
Oh gosh. Okay. Poetry, I don't have much experience with it, but what I do know about it is something that is written to touch you in a way that no other form of writing could, because it's unique.
I like that. So here's a challenge for you guys before I move on. Go through these words and think about them really, really hard for a bit and try to define them yourself, your own definition of them. So for instance, poetry, my personal definition of poetry is anything that resonates within you. And when I say that, I don't mean that it's something, if I wrote it, or if it's not something that resonates within Mason. It's not something that resonates within Rebecca or Alexei. It's something that resonates within me. And so poetry may not be the same to everybody. Something that's poetry to one person is not poetry to another person. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And poetry to me does not necessarily need to be the written word. It does not necessarily need to be rhyming couplets or quatrains or rhyme royale or sonnets. Poetry to me is when you're standing out in a meadow in late spring with a late spring breeze brushing past your face, and you just go, that's poetry. You know, when you hear people say that's poetic, it's because it resonated within them, right? So that's my definition, and if you guys want to use that definition, go for it. But try to come up with your own personal definition of what poetry is, because only once you have that definition will you be able to utilize it and be able to write poetry for you. I think one thing I wanted to say was that to write good poetry, you have to write it for you. Because if you write something and try to write it so that it resonates with somebody else, it kind of generally rings false to them. Do you know what I mean? If you don't believe something and you try to write about it, then people can kind of tell that it's not true, that you don't really believe it. But if it's something that resonates within you and you write about what resonates within you, then generally it will resonate within others because they know that it resonated within you. So I want everybody really quick, take out your pen and piece of paper or your Word document, and I want you to make a list of 5 things that you know to be true. The only rule is that that you don't want to think too hard, okay? So I'm going to give you just like 30 seconds. Just think really hard, and I'm going to come up with a list myself too. I'll turn off my mic. Raise your hand if you want just a little bit more time. Everybody good? Okay. So 5 things I know to be true is that tape is sticky, that my sister breaks a lot of electronics, not on purpose, that Steve Jobs made a big deal about the first iPod being the same size as a deck of cards. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten what my other 2 are. I should have written them down. But like I said, it does not, just don't think too hard about it. So Julia, why don't you share a couple things on your list?
Okay, 2 of the things on my list were that Greek food is delicious and that I have unique gifts.
Okay. Rebecca, how about you?
I have music is amazing, no matter what form it's in, and that change is inevitable.
Okay. Okay. Who else is on here? I just missed something. Mason, how about you?
All right. I have dancing is fun. My keyboard is black. The sun rises every day, and I think, therefore I am.
Oh, okay. Nathan, how about you?
Well, my things are, I believe the Book of Mormon to be true. It's scripture, right? Laws of science, like gravity. I'm an extrovert. Obviously, no, that's true. My desk is black. That's, well, kind of black. And 20, 40, 40 rule of money, I believe to be true. So.
Okay.
I started thinking significantly less hard after the first 2.
My desk is black. You're like, I'm running out of time. Okay, Jacob, how about you? You're not on the same list as them, so I'm kind of forgetting about you. Are you there,
Okay.
Jacob?
Yes, I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
I wrote that life is hard, that God loves me, that I am strong, that humans are beautiful, and that a breath means life.
Okay. So I know I didn't get quite everybody, but I'm going to move on here. And here's what you'll find. And this is actually something that a poet named Sarah Kay came up with. This is a technique that she used. She said that oftentimes people will need to be tricked into writing poetry. That it's too daunting of a subject. What should I write it about? How should I write it? What format should I write it in? Whoa, and it's all crazy. And so she said she came up with lists, and she would assign different lists. 5 things I know to be true, 10 things I know to be true, 10 things I should have learned by now, 10 lessons I learned in high school, et cetera, et cetera. And she would have people come up with these lists. And she said that if you get a big enough audience, these are the things that you're going to find. That someone has exactly the same thing or something very similar to yours on their list. That somebody has something the complete opposite of yours. So, for instance, Mason said, dancing is fun. That was on his list. Somebody might have said, dancing is the scariest thing on the entire planet. It's different things are different truths for different people, right? Somebody has something that you'd never heard of before. Like, I never thought about that before. And somebody has something that you thought that you knew everything about, but they introduced a kind of new angle, right? Sometimes it's things that you knew but you had never put into words before that they put in words. Like, I never actually put that into words. I never thought God loves me. And Sarah Kay, she said that this is where great stories and great poetry begins, is when your interests and your passions on those lists intersect with other people's, whether it's the opposite, whether it's the same, something they'd never heard of, or something that's just a new angle on something that people thought they knew everything about. That's where great stories begin. So, for instance, Nathan's desk is black. Would not have made it on the list, probably. Tape is sticky. Would not have made it on the list would not create a great story, right? But God loves me. Life is hard. Rebecca had one. I can't remember what it was. But these different things, they would create great poetry. Okay? So Sarah Kay tells the story of one girl, say her name is Charlotte, and she would not write poetry. She could not. She assigned list after list after list, and Charlotte just said, I'm not interesting. I don't have anything interesting or any interesting stories to tell. And Sarah Kay finally assigned her list. The list was called 10 Things That I Should Have Learned by Now. And number 3 on Charlotte's list was not to crush on guys 3 times my age. And you can imagine the reaction. Well, wait a minute. What in the world does that mean? It's kind of that thing on the list. I'd never heard of that before. What? And so Charlotte wrote her first poem. And the first poem started out like this. Anderson Cooper is a gorgeous man. Did you see him on 60 Minutes racing Michael Phelps in a pool? Nothing but swim trunks on, diving in the water, determined to be the swimming champion? After the race, he tossed his wet cloud-white hair and said, "You're a god." No, Anderson, you're the god. It's kind of like Sarah Kay said, where those stories intersect, that creates great poetry. This probably resonated within Charlotte. And because it resonated with her, it resonates within us, though maybe not on the same level. Maybe we're not like, wow, she really shouldn't crush on guys 3 times her age. But maybe we're going, that is really amazing, and that's something I never thought of before. I'd never thought of that way before. Okay? Here's where we're going to get into some fun, interesting stuff. Now that you have your list, and that you have these subjects, and some of these things might be poetry-worthy, the next thing that you want to look at is you want to look at your word awareness. And let me look at the time here. It's 4:40 my time. Okay. You want to look at your word awareness. So a lot of the time you will find yourself writing or reading sentences like this. We had a lot of fun. But in poetry, you not only want to write about things that resonate within you. That fun day really resonated within you. But you wrote that we had a lot of fun. The way that poetry works is you want to make it resonate within you, and then you want to paint that image as best as possible so that it can resonate within others. And so if we take the sentence and dissect it and change it a little bit, we could change it into something like that. That afternoon was one that would live an eternity in our minds, never to be forgotten. That's so much cooler. It was a nice day. The day smelled of freshly cut grass as the newborn sun poked its head over the horizon, spreading its life-giving rays over the landscape. These are sentences that paint an image in the reader's mind, that make them see what you are seeing and feel what you are feeling. The old man looked at us. The deeply furrowed lines in the elderly man's face seemed to convey hundreds of years' worth of sleepless nights that were soon to be left behind for an eternity of comfort. Okay? I'm going to skip through this, but maybe I'll send you the PowerPoint for this so that you can look through it afterwards. But these are some sentences, typical sentences, that could very easily be expanded to paint an image of what you're seeing and what you're feeling. The grass was tall. I am tired. My friend looked at me weirdly. He coughed loudly. I drew my sword and prepared to fight. I couldn't stop laughing. I looked intensely into her eyes. Okay? Take a minute and look at this comic. Giggle, laugh a little bit. I came across this beauty quite a while ago on xkcd.com, and I laughed, and I've been using it in my poetry and Shakespeare classes for the last while because it's just amusing. Everybody knows what metaphors and similes are, right? I don't think you're stupid, but I just want to clarify. Metaphors are comparing without using like or as. I never was the sharpest tool in the shed. Similes are comparing with using like or as. I'm kind of like a butter knife. Like, as. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, right? So you're just going to your goal in writing poetry, like I said, your word awareness, is you want to paint that image, and you want to show the image and what you're feeling, what you see, what you feel, and metaphors and similes are ways of conveying that. Okay. So I just want you to remember that for this exercise. I need a volunteer. Raise your hand, volunteer. Come on. Come on. Nathan. I knew I could count on you. Nathan was first, Rebecca. You can be next. Okay. Nathan, I want you to close your eyes. Okay? And I want you to think of a place that you've been very, very happy. Okay? Are your eyes closed? Nathan? Is there a big backup?
Yes. Maybe I can hear you.
Okay, tell me when you hear this. Okay. Nathan, I want you to think of the happiest or a very happy place that you've been. And I want you to describe it to me, to us, but I want you to focus specifically on the image, what it looked like, being very, very descriptive, the sound, what it sounded like where you were, what it smelled like, and just the general feel of it.
All right. He's in my house. In the kitchen, there's white snow glistening through the windows. You take a smell, you can smell food, you can smell bread cooking, you can smell fresh dough being rolled into rolls. Thanksgiving dinner. You can hear the TV crackling in the background. You can hear people laughing. And you can just feel the happiness sort of imminent in the room.
You know what we can also hear, Nathan? Lots of
What can we
phones
hear?
ringing and children talking and laughing very loudly in the background, hurting my ears.
That is not my phone.
Yeah, that would be mine.
Okay, I must be hearing everybody else's. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute. Tell me this, Nathan, in a second. I'm going to mute everybody, and then, Nathan, I want you to try to turn your mic back on. Tell me if you can or not. I assume that you cannot. Okay. Nathan?
Yeah, because I couldn't, so I couldn't turn it on. Yeah, I can.
I want, if everybody could go ahead and mute themselves really quick. Turn off your mics. The problem is I'm hearing like phones ringing and children laughing and TVs and things just running, and I'm hearing all of them mashed together, and so it's just a little tough for me to hear people. So turn your mic off if you're not talking, and then when you're talking, you can go ahead and turn it back on if that's all right. Okay. So people, what was I going to say? Do you know when your train of thought just totally derails completely? I'm having one of those moments. When you're writing poetry, you need to think about specifics. So Nathan said in there, I remember he said there's snow glistening on the window panes. When he said that, it's very, very specific. When you're writing poetry, you want to think about specifics. So first you're going to think about the subject. There's snow glistening on the window panes. And then you want to think of words to help describe that. You want to think of your metaphors. You want to think of your similes. Snow was glistening on the window panes as if St. Nicholas was already here. And if you use these metaphors and these similes, they have a tendency to increase the power of your poetry. I have my sister coming onto my computer right now to listen in because her computer's not working. Okay, so that's one little exercise. Here's another one. We'll do this together, actually. Do you see this beautiful image of Alaska right here on the page? I'm going to go down the list, and I'm actually going to start with me. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I need to get my tabs all open. I can't have that open and that open at the same time. Silly people. Okay, I'm going to open up my chat, and you guys know where you are on the list. I think it's Alexei that starts, but I'll start. And you see these are tools in the Poet's Toolbox, and this is an exercise I like to use quite a bit. I like to take an image, like this one right here, and then I like to kind of just write and describe this image, to try to paint this image and what I feel about it into words. So if I start and I say image, I just want one sentence describing the image. Trees swaying with the spring breeze. We don't need to get too complicated, do we? Okay. Alexei, why don't you go ahead and give me a sentence describing a little bit of the light. What light do you see? What is the light doing?
Light shines over the mountains, reflecting the trees in the water.
Mountains reflecting the trees. Sorry. The trees into the water. Okay. Smell. Who's next on the list? I don't know who's next. Jacob, if you know who's next, call on him. If you know.
Julia is.
Julia. Okay. Julia, why don't you go ahead and give me some smell? What is the smell of this image?
Okay. The scenery smells of fresh pine and crisp mountain air.
Smells of fresh pine and crisp mountain air. Ah, yes. Okay. Whoever's next, give me some sound.
All right, sound. Silence lay over the looming mountaintops as they
Mountain tops.
oppressed the noise of the forest.
Of the forest. I almost spelled forest with 2 R's. What does that tell you about me? Okay. Whoever's next, give me some questions. And what you want to think about when you're thinking about questions is obviously the questions that you have about the image, but let me think of one, for instance, and I'm just going to give you an example. Do the birds realize the beauty of the environment they live in? You know, just questions like that. Anybody? Anybody? Whoever's next? This is a tougher one. Nobody. Nobody? Okay. How about I just use the one that I used? What was it? Do the birds truly realize the wonder of the world they live in? Sounds good to me. Okay. Who is next on the list? Is it... Oh, I'm going to go through here. It's Nathan. Nathan, you're next.
It was Mason.
But Nathan
It was Mason.
Mason already went.
I'm sorry,
Nathan.
I forgot that he said it.
Wasn't me, I already went.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I realized that you went now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you want another question or something else?
No, go with the feeling. What is the feeling of the image? What feelings arise in you? Or what is the just general feeling of the image? Whatever that word brings to your mind.
Okay. You feel the thrill of adventure as you imagine scaling the mountains before you.
The thrill of adventure. As you imagine, what was it? As you imagine the...
As you imagine scaling the mountains before you.
As you imagine scaling the mountains before you. Okay. You guys will see this in a minute. It's going to be great. Okay. Who's next on the list? Is it Rebecca? Problem is I have to go to the list and then come back out. It is Rebecca. Rebecca. Repeating words. Okay. What this is I want you to think about, this is the toughest one. I want you to think about the feelings, the questions, the sound, the smell, the light, the image that we've talked about. Hold on 1 second, actually. I'm going to Control-C, copy-paste. I'm going to send this, what we've got so far, to everybody. And I want everybody to think about this for a second. Does everybody see this that I just sent in the chat, in the questions? Oh, never mind. Yes. Does everybody see this? Raise your hand if you cannot see it. Okay, good. Rebecca, your job is to find a word that encompasses everything that we've already written, and then we'll repeat that word 3 times at the end. Okay? Whether it's beauty, whether it's peace. Generally 1 or 2 syllable words work a little bit better.
Okay. Just one word, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wonder.
Wonder. I like that one. So you have 2 options here. We could do this, wonder, period, wonder, period, wonder, period, and then we finish. Or you could do wonder is here, wonder is, and then have 3 sentences that all begin with wonder or have wonder in them, and that creates a little bit more of an impact. This is just a fun exercise. So this is what the poem looks like. Let me read it really quick. Actually, Nathan, why don't you go ahead and read that to us?
Okay. Trees swaying with the spring breeze. Light shines over the mountains, reflecting the trees into the water. The scenery smells of fresh pine and the crisp mountain air. Silence lay over the looming mountaintops as they oppressed the noise of the forest. Do the birds truly realize the wonder of the world they live in? You can feel the thrill of adventure as you imagine scaling the mountain before you. Wonder. Wonder.
Nathan is my favorite actor. He just has this tendency of reading things like that. It's incredible. Okay, so do you see how that utilizing those tools in the toolbox kind of helps paint an image? And that right there, it's a little bit disconnected because each person kind of has a different way of formatting their sentences, and so it kind of came out a little choppy. But you can see how that could almost be turned into poetry just right there. So here's your next task. I want you to pick one of these images, and I want you to do what we just did on your own. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this. So take out your Word document, take out your pen and pencil. Word document preferably, because I want to see these. I want you to chat them to me. And go ahead and start writing. I'm going to turn my mic off and mute you. This, you don't need to use just one sentence for each, and you don't need to use every single one. You can use them in different orders, use a few sentences of one kind, don't even use any of the other kind. Just mix it up a little bit. Try to utilize them. Just under a minute. All right, raise your hand if you'd like just a little bit more time. Okay, I'll give you just another minute, okay? No time for revising, just hurry. Okay, as much as I hate to say it, we're going to need to stop. Sorry, I was distracted for just a second. We're going to need to stop because I have a lot of stuff to get through. But if you aren't finished, go ahead and save it for later. And I'll probably send you guys this PowerPoint with all these pictures and stuff on it, so you'll be able to find what your picture was and go further into it if you didn't get a chance to. If you would like to, and I would love to see your poems, go ahead and chat me your poems in the question box, and I'll be able to save them. It's so sad that we don't have the chat box, because I'm sure that everybody would really, really enjoy seeing everybody else's poems. But what I'm going to do, sorry, hold on a second. I'm going to unmute you all now. Go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to share your poem. Jacob, would you like to share your poem? Jacob, are you there? I know you're there. Okay. Mason, I know you had your hand raised. Nathan, you also, but Mason or Nathan? Why don't we have Nathan? No, let's have Mason go. Have you ever done that before, where you're just like, I'm gonna no. Ah! I do that with my siblings a lot. Ryan, Aunt Chris, whatever your name is. Okay. So Mason, what image did you pick?
I picked the funeral.
Okay. Why don't you want to go ahead and share your poem?
Sure. Okay. The wooden box lay as a message to the world. Light shines upon the solemn scene, resting on the red of the roses. Silence is the viewer's only companion. Where is the loved one that so recently left? The crisp air symbolizes the start of a new journey. Comfort dwells within as the knowledge pierces through the agony. Remember the memories. Remember the lessons. Remember.
That was epic. That's what Sabrina just said next to me. So did you notice, did everybody else notice how at the end when he repeated the remember, how it just kind of, he didn't repeat remember, but he did use remember in all three of those sentences, and it just kind of made it go, oh, in your insides. That was awesome. I would love it if you guys would send those to me in the questions box. Jacob is ready to share his. He was just muted, so he couldn't talk. So Jacob, why don't you go ahead and tell us what image you picked?
I see how you treat your cousin. Okay, so I picked the upper left-hand corner picture because it was the very first one I saw and it just grabbed me. Okay, pain and sound crushed through me. Sun shines through the dusty air, blurring any direct light. I can smell my own blood. It emerges from my abdomen and stains my shirt. The smell burns my nostrils. Sound.
We're not laughing at you. We were laughing at your laugh. Sorry. Oh, was that it? Oh, was that it, Jacob? I'm sorry. I thought you were still going. That's awesome. So you didn't...
No, I am still going.
Oh, okay. Now I feel like a dork. I'm sorry, Jacob. Why don't you go ahead and keep going?
Okay. I'm really sorry. Okay. The sound is silent, yet booming. Gunfire pierces the sound, but shock is slowly closing off any sound to my ears. What am I doing? Who is this man that is dragging me from this dangerous land? Agony, terror, and finally, silence.
That was incredible. and I know that it's detracting from the moment a little bit, but I will just let you know that when I turned my mic off, I was laughing hysterically at your laugh. It was really funny. Because you were laughing and then you like went straight into like blood, agony, silence. um, so one thing you guys might notice that Jacob did there was he actually, because there was a person in his image, he actually took the person in the image on himself and wrote it in first person, which makes it much more powerful on certain levels. Whereas when you're just describing people, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it tends to seem a little bit distant because it's like just an observer is coldly observing, I guess is the word, observer observing. But he took on first person for the people. Is there anybody else that really wants to share theirs, or should we move on? Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move on, because what time is it? It is 6:07, 5:07. Whoa, holy cow. Okay. Here's the boring part, guys, and I'm just gonna zoom through this because I believe that you should know that there are terms for the things that you do, but you don't necessarily need to know the terms on a certain level. Have you ever like done something a certain way for quite a while, and then one day you figure out that there was actually some special term for what you were doing? It's kind of like that. Poetry, to me, is kind of like that. So we're going to go through couplets, quatrains, cinquains, and as you guys will notice on the slide, for some reason, my spell check kept changing cinquains to chinquapins, which is apparently a kind of tree. I had to go look it up. It wasn't even in the dictionary. I had to look it up online. So I'm going, wait a minute. But we're going to talk about iambic, trochaic, spondaic. We're going to talk pentameter, tetrameter, hexameter, etc., 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 and all that other boring stuff. Just really quickly, we're going to go over it. Oh my goodness. Okay, couplets. What is a couplet? Sabrina, what is a couplet?
Couplet is two lines that they rhyme at the end.
I hope you all heard that. A couplet is two lines that rhyme, right? Today you are you, that is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Dr. Seuss's brilliant and immortal lines. And they resonate within us because we know that we are you. I mean, that didn't come out right. We know that we are we, and that there's nobody else that is like us, right? So that kind of like, go back to Sarah Kay's list, when you're talking about things that other people care about and you care about, when those two intersect, that's when great poetry is created. Unlike this next one, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired. Obviously, sleep is a privilege I have not yet acquired. That was me last night preparing this PowerPoint. Okay, quatrains. Quatrains are similar to couplets, except they are 4 lines. And you're going to come across a few different types of quatrains. And like I said, like there's terms for them, and you don't really need to know the terms. So let's go into the first one. Shakespeare. The rhyme scheme, there's different rhyme schemes for quatrains. So a quatrain is 4 line, quatrain, quadruple, 4. So this rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. Day, rate, May, date. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That's that rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. Another one you'll find is A, B, A, C. Oh my goodness, what did I just do? Hold on 1 minute while I fix this. Oh my goodness, what did I do? File. Oh, I know what I did. Just let me fix it. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 minute. No! No! What did I do? Shut up. I'm sorry, I did something to my computer.
That's a very good question. None of us noticed anything different. What did you do?
I don't know.
Watch your mouth, man.
Hold on. Okay, I fixed it. I'm sorry. That was a very strange moment for me. Okay, so another one is ABAC, like I just said. Whoa! Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Everybody knows this one, right? This is a good one. But you see, the rhyme scheme is child, don'ts, shouldn'ts, won'ts. So that's actually A, B, C, A. never rhymes. It's not. It's child, don'ts, shouldn'ts, won'ts. Don'ts and won'ts. So it's A, B, A, C. A, B, A, C. Listen to the never haves, then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child, anything can be. A, B, A, C. So you see there's different rhyme schemes. Shouldn'ts and child don't rhyme. And what is it? Haves and child don't rhyme. Okay. Next one. I'm sorry, I seem very awkward right now. And this one by Taylor Swift. Just really quickly, I want everybody to go ahead and read this Taylor Swift quote to themselves out loud. I'm going to mute you really quickly first, though, because I don't want to like hear everybody muttering this to themselves. Now go ahead and say this line to yourselves out loud. Okay. By raise of hands. Sorry, I must have come up on the back end of somebody saying it. Okay. By raise of hands, how many of you said that? Actually, first by raise of hands, I'm going to do this two things. First by raise of hands, how many of you have heard that song? Raise of hands. Okay, you have all heard that song. Okay, well, I'm going to put your hands down. How many of you, when you said that out loud, said it out loud, at least kind of, in like the rhythm? You know, said it, Romeo, save me, they're trying to tell me. How many of you? Raise your hands. You know you did. So, four out of 8 of us. Alexa is tentative. I did, but I didn't. 4 out of 8 of us did. Said it like that, and the reason for that is you can see Shel Silverstein, and we're gonna get into this in a second, but you can see Shel Silverstein and William Shakespeare, both these quotes, they had a meter to them. You know, iambic pentameter in Shakespeare's case, and a different one in Shel Silverstein's case. Okay. There's meter, there's a certain amount of syllables, and there's a rhythm to it. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. You can kind of see how it naturally has that rhythm to it. Well, Taylor Swift, when you're just reading it regularly, it doesn't have the same rhythm. It goes, Romeo, save me. They're trying to tell me how to feel. This love is difficult, but it's real. Don't be afraid. We'll make it out of this mess. It's a love story. Baby, just say yes. It kind of reads okay. It reads okay. But when you really get into it is when you're singing along with it, when you're going with meter. Romeo, save me. You know, you start getting into it. It's because it has a rhythm to it. And so songs can be poetry without having that specific rhythm when you're just reading it. When you're just reading it, it might not ring really rhythmic and awesome. But when you're listening to it in a spoken format, that's when it rings really, really true. So you're going to find that a lot. Cinquains are just like quatrains, except they have a 5th line added. Sometimes the 5th line rhymes with the other 4. Sometimes it doesn't. That 5th line will, depending on where you find it, will just kind of like add a little bit of an extra punch to what you were trying to say. Sometimes you'll put the first 4 lines in a specific meter, and then you'll put the last line in a very shortened meter. It just all depends. And this is why I'm doing this. I'll tell you really quickly. The reason why I'm doing this is to show you that there's a million different ways that you can write poetry. There's a million different meters and a million different formats and a million different rhythms. And so no matter what anybody tells you, pick your own rhythm. Do what you want to do. Okay? Don't try to copy other people. Just write what feels right. Okay. Whew. Okay. If everybody is watching the slides, which I know that 20% of you are not, 100% are now. Yay! Did you know that I can tell when you're not paying attention? Isn't that cool? How nice are my feet? A foot, a poetic foot is just a unit of syllables. And I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. Let me see how much time. I have 45 minutes with you guys. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. I'm just going to zoom through it so that you know that it exists. Like I said, I want you to know it exists and kind of have a general grasp, but you don't need to memorize or any of this, okay? A foot is just a unit of syllables. So if we look at an iamb is a foot that contains two syllables. The first syllable is naturally unstressed and the second is naturally stressed. So this is one thing that is important, is that words have a natural stress to them. I used to teach Shakespeare, my first year teaching Shakespeare, and I would tell them to write things in iambic pentameter, and they would come back to me with things that were 10 syllables, but it wasn't in iambic pentameter because they were using the wrong type of feet. And this will make sense in a second. So an iamb is unstressed, stressed. So when you say Detroit, you emphasize Detroit more than the D. It's Detroit. It's not Detroit. It's not Detroit. It's not Detroit. It's Detroit. When you emphasize New York, it's New York. It's not New York. It's New York. A trochee is also a foot that contains two syllables, but it's the first syllable is unstressed and the first syllable is stressed and the second is unstressed. So if we look at London, you say London. You don't say London. You say London. When you say Boston, it's Boston, not Boston, right? Anapest is 3 syllables. It's a foot that contains 3 syllables. The first 2 are unstressed and the third is stressed. Tennessee, it's not Tennessee, it's Tennessee. New Orleans. Then you get into others, and I'm not even going to go into them. You have dactyls, amphibrax, pyrrhic, spondees. Some are 3 syllables where it's stressed, unstressed, stressed. Some are unstressed, stressed, stressed. Some are, and then the pyrrhic and the spondee are unstressed, unstressed, and then the spondee is stressed, stressed. It's just insane. But all you need to know is that they exist, because nobody should have to memorize all of this. It's insane, right? So, I wish that I had Illuminate or Blackboard, some of you might know, because I could do some web browsing. There's a incredible video that I like to use in my poetry and Shakespeare classes, and it's a British comedy, and they're in an English class, and there's one person that has trouble because she puts exclamation marks at the end of all of her sentences, and there's one person that has trouble with their commas and stuff. But instead of having trouble writing their exclamation marks, they have trouble saying them. They have trouble with their English when they're saying them. So I have trouble putting exclamation marks on the end of sentences! And they would say them like that. And there was one man, very interesting, he said he had trouble with his emphasis, and that sometimes he needed to purchase a dictionary. And he would say things and he would put the wrong stress on the wrong syllable in the word. Emphasis. It's emphasis, not emphasis. Dictionary. Okay, so that's one illustration of that. So now that we've gone through the feet, let's go through the meters.
You should put that in the...
I should put that in what, Nathan? I heard the first part of what you said.
You should put you should put the link to that in the chat box at the end of this class.
I'll tell you what. If I can remember, I'll put it in the chat box. I'd have to look it up first. But what I'll do is I'll put it in this PowerPoint, and when I send it to you, you can go click on the link. How about that? We'll do that. Okay. Now in the meter. So we have the feet. Now we have the meter. So you've heard the term pentameter. So there's monometer, dimeter, trimeter, tetrameter, pentameter, hexameter, heptameter, octameter. It's just like there's all kinds of them, and all you need to know is mono is 1, D is 2, tri is 3, tetra is 4. Just like that. Okay. So if we say monometer, it's 1 foot. So if it's iambic monometer, it's just 2 syllables. If it's dimeter, it's 2 feet. So if it's an iamb, then it's 4 syllables. If it's one of those ones that has 3 syllables, then it's 6 syllables. You kind of get the thing. So when we look at iambic pentameter, it's 5 feet. Let's look at it really quick. Iambic pentameter. So an iamb is 1 foot with 2 syllables. First is unstressed, second is stressed. And pentameter has 5 feet in the meter, right? So when you look at iambic pentameter, it's 5 feet of 2 syllables that are unstressed, stressed. Or the way that I like to think of it is I like to think 10 syllables that are unstressed, stressed. If music be the food of love, play on. That's one of my favorite lines to use for examples. So we can see the slash marks, the hash marks separate all the feet. and the bold is stressed, and the unbolded is unstressed. So music is an iamb because you emphasize music. It's not music, it's music, right? So if music be the food of love, you naturally go, if music be the food of love, play on. See, that naturally has a little bit of a stress. People like to exaggerate it a lot when they're saying it. If music be the food of love, play on. Okay? It is the east and Juliet is the sun, right? So here's a tip for writing it. If you are planning on using lots of meters and getting into that, which is cool. It's a little bit tougher than poetry is. And I go into this a little bit in my class that I'll be teaching. But here's a little quick tip. One-syllable words can generally be stressed or unstressed. So you see back here, be the food of love, play on, play or on could either be stressed or unstressed. It doesn't matter, but you just naturally will do whichever. So one-syllable words can usually be stressed or unstressed, except for when you find words like and the. Those ones you don't want to put stress on those because it doesn't naturally go that way. If music be the food, it just doesn't work very well. And pronouns he, she, they can be stressed sometimes, but you try to avoid that if you can. So like, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The I is stressed. Can anybody think of why? This is one of those rhetorical questions Shakespeare teachers ask their students. Why do you think Shakespeare made the I stressed, and shall I compare thee to a summer's day in that line? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Can anybody guess? Raise your hand if you want to guess. I didn't think so. Think about it this way. If the shall was stressed or the I was stressed, when you hear people asking questions, you could say, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall I? It's kind of like a question that's kind of like, should I really? You know, it's kind of like, should I? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Whereas when you say, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? It's like other people can, but I will, and I will do it. I will compare thee to a summer's day. So that emphasis kind of helps with that a little bit, and into what the meaning of the sentence is. It's tough. Okay, I'm going to start a poll, and I want you to tell me if you think this line is an iambic pentameter or not. Remember iambic pentameter? 10 syllables, unstressed, stressed. Okay? The course of true love never did run smooth. Go ahead, lock in your answers really quickly. And I can see on the list that lots of you guys have asked questions. I put that in like finger quotation marks because I'm not sure if you have or not. And I'm sorry if I have not been checking them. I'm not very good at checking questions while I'm presenting, while I'm doing all this other stuff as well. If you are all locked in, let's look really quick here at the poll again. Okay. I'm going to close the poll. Share. 50% said it is. 50% said it isn't. Okay. Somebody that said why it isn't. Go ahead and tell me why you thought that it isn't. Why you think that it isn't. There are no judgments called. Are you all muted? You're not all muted. Somebody tell me. It's tough. Let's look at it really quick. It is iambic pentameter because the course of true love never did run smooth. The course of true love never did run smooth. You know, you naturally want to go, the course of true love never did run smooth. Never. It's never, not never, right? Which will help you with one of these next ones. Okay, next poll. Woo, poll. Hide. Never, 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 never. Never, 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 never. Is it iambic pentameter or not? Come on. Everybody lock it in. A few of you haven't still.
If you read it out loud, it can help.
Okay, closing it and sharing. 60% says it's iambic pentameter, 40% said it's not. Here's the thing that you run into when you're trying to figure out if it's iambic pentameter or not. You want to change the words to suit you. Do you know what I mean? So you'll go never, 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 never. But do you naturally say never? Or do you naturally say never? Is it never or is it never? So the answer is that it is not iambic pentameter. It's never. And the reason for this is, and it's very cool because Shakespeare wrote entire plays in iambic pentameter. What time is it? Oh, we're not going to be able to write our sonnet. The reason for this is, I'm going to go really, really fast. The reason for this is this line was spoken by King Lear at the very end of the play, right before he died. And what happened is Shakespeare wrote entire plays in iambic pentameter, and he only changed it so that it wasn't in iambic pentameter for specific reasons. So this was written right before King Lear died. So this is what the line would have sounded like. Iambic pentameter was designed to mimic the heartbeat. Da 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 da. You know your heartbeat goes da 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 da. So when we change it like this, it turns into da 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 da, which sounds kind of like a faltering heart. So could you imagine King Lear saying the words like this? Never, 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 never. And then he dies. Isn't it cool what you can do with iambs and trochees and pentameter and poetry with the meter to cast that image? It's really cool. I'm going to go to the next one really quickly because we're running out of time. Now is the winter of our discontent. I'm not going to give you the poll for this one. It is true. Now is the winter of our discontent. Funny story about that. People quote that as if it's its own thought. You know, people will quote all the time. Now is the winter of our discontent. But it actually continues on to the next line. Richard III, he said, now is the winter of our discontent turned glorious summer by the son of York. So he's not saying now is the winter of our discontent. He's saying now is the winter of our discontent turned into summer by the son of York. So it's not winter anymore. It's summer because of the glorious son of York. Iambic pentameter. Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds. I'm going to launch poll. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely forgot. I had to hide the poll. When I don't hide the poll, you can't see it. Okay. Now, gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds. Iambic pentameter or not iambic pentameter? I'm going to count down from 5, and then I'm going to close the poll. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Sharing results. 67 says it's not, and 33% said it is. Okay? Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds, this one's a tough one, is not iambic pentameter, because gallop is not an iamb, it's a trochee. When you say gallop, do you say gallop, or do you say gallop? Gallop is a trochee, not an iamb. But the rest is iambic. And what that does is this was actually spoken by Juliet as she's waiting for Romeo to come meet her. Romeo, come on, come night, come. Night, come. But she's waiting for Romeo, and she says this, and tell me what this sounds like. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds. It sounds kind of like a galloping horse. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It kind of has the sense of urgency to it, right? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's very cool what Shakespeare did. It's very, very cool. Did I not share this? 30%. Hide. That's what I did. Okay. Moving on, what time is it here? Okay. Let me see. What do I have to cover here? We are not going to make a sonnet, but we're going to show you how to make a sonnet very, very, very quickly and very, very... Actually, no, we're going to make a sonnet. We're going to make a sonnet, okay, guys? So I need you all to be paying attention because I'm going to need your help on this. Okay, a sonnet is typically an iambic pentameter, but we're not going to worry about that, okay, because we don't have much time. Yes, be paying very close attention. 33% of you are not paying attention. Okay. Okay, so a sonnet is 14 lines. It's 3 quatrains, which remember were 4 lines, and A, B, A, B, so rhyming time, door, lime, floor, right? And 1 couplet at the very end, okay? So that's it. A sonnet can be written about anything, despite popular belief. Some people say sonnets are only supposed to be written about love, written to your love or about love. I disagree. I think a sonnet can be written about anything whatsoever. So we're going to go, and we're going to... Oh, actually, I'm going to go through this first. I'm not going to show you this. This is just some examples of sonnets that some of my students wrote. I gave them 10 minutes, and they wrote these sonnets. So you can look over those later. So here's what we're going to have a poll. You're going to vote whether we want to write a sonnet about Taylor Lautner, dancing monkeys, if cake didn't exist, Andrew's crush, or how/why I killed my cat. Okay, I'm going to open up a poll. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when I came up with this list. Okay, let's poll.
Dang, I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm going to count down from 5, 4, 3, 2. I know there's one of you that hasn't voted yet. I think. Nope, there isn't. You've all voted. Okay. 1. Close and share. The results are in. We are going to write a poem, a sonnet about if cake didn't exist. Excellent deal. Excellent deal. Okay. Oh, no, that's not where I'm like. Our sonnet. Okay. Oh, boy, this is going to be tough to write in 10 minutes together. Okay. I'm going to have you each give me 1 line. Okay? And I'm going to write it out for us. Okay? I don't know what Jacob's saying. Okay. Whoever's first on the list. It is Alexei, right? Give me a line. Any line. Just give me 1 line. One line.
A line about if cake didn't exist.
If cake didn't exist.
Do you want me to type it in or tell it to you?
Just tell it to me, and I'll type it in. Here, I'll start really quick. If cake didn't exist, I wouldn't be fat. Next line.
Are we doing it in iambic pentameter or no?
No, we're not going to worry about that right now because we have about 5 minutes.
Oh.
Didn't exist, I wouldn't be fat.
What would we eat at... No, that's not long enough. How would... What would we eat at birthday party time?
Okay, wouldn't be fat. Ah! I'm having trouble. I'm going to escape out of this really quickly. If I can. Okay. Here we go. If cake didn't exist, I wouldn't be fat. Excuse any of the typos I make. What was the line, Alexei, again? What would we eat at birthday time?
I don't know what we...
I don't
know what... I don't know what...
Okay. Okay, who's next on the list? We need something that rhymes with fat as a line. Julia. Julia.
Okay, something that rhymes with that. Let me think for a second. Um, okay.
Hey, Andrew, real quick, while she's thinking, I'm probably not going to be able to give mine at the right time because there's stuff going on here in just a second. So I may have to give it a
Is this Nathan or Mason? I'm going to guess that's Nathan. Okay. Don't think too hard, Julia. Just think about... It doesn't even need to make too much sense. I don't know what we'd eat at birthday time. Just rhymes with fat.
What would you feed your cat?
Feed. Okay. I'd kill my cat, right? How and why I killed the cat. Okay. Mason. We need something that rhymes with time.
All right. Without my comfort food, how would I be able to rhyme?
Okay. Rebecca. We need a brand new line. Doesn't need to rhyme with anything else. You got it. Simple.
Oh, this treat's so tasty, so sweet.
Oh, this tastes so tasty? I didn't quite catch what she said.
Treat, so tasty. Treat.
Treat so tasty. Say the next part again. I don't know what I'd eat.
So sweet.
Ah. Could you say the whole line for me again, Rebecca? I'm sorry. I know sweet was the last word.
Okay, this treat's so tasty, so sweet.
Okay. This treat so tasty, so sweet. Okay, Jacob, you're up. Jacob! Are you muted again? You are muted again. Jacob, you're not. You're up.
Okay, finally. All right, so it's a brand new line.
Yes.
Okay. If cake didn't exist. I wouldn't get married.
That makes no sense. Okay, that's okay. Okay, Alexei, you're up again. Something that rhymes with sweet. We're gonna finish this
My
quatrain.
little brother's favorite treat.
Ah. And remember, each line does not need to be its own thought. So we could just carry this line on. My little brother's favorite treat, and then we could go, is something that might make me get buried or something, you know. We could just continue on to the next line. Julia, you're up again. You get to rhyme something with married.
Buried. Whoops.
I lost my mic.
Yeah, go with what you just said. That was good.
I don't know what I just said, Julia.
The, you said something about buried. How did you word it exactly? It was...
That sounds good to me. Would cause him to be buried. Okay.
Yes, that's so cool.
We're going to move on because I'm so out of time that I need to move on. Aha. Okay. Oh, So we got halfway through a sonnet that quick. We would have needed one more quatrain and then a couplet to finish it up. Okay, here's the danger that you're going to find as you're writing poetry. The big danger is getting bogged down by the mechanics. A lot of people don't write any poetry at all because they feel that they can't, because they feel that the quatrains and the couplets and the iambs and the trochees and the hexameter, they're just too much for them to handle. And that's completely false. Those tools, the quatrain, couplet, hexameter, etc., they're tools that you can utilize to write poetry, but you don't need them to write poetry. Like what we wrote with those pictures earlier, that was poetry. One of my favorite poets is Sarah Kay, and she does what's called spoken word poetry, and she defines that as poetry that is too powerful to be contained on the page, so that it needs to be spoken or presented in front of an audience, that it just jumps off the page. You can't just read it because it's not as powerful when you read it. It needs to be spoken. And she doesn't write in any particular meter. She writes from her soul. That sounds very, very cheesy. But she does. She writes about her, and she writes about what resonates within her. And it's not necessarily in a meter. Sometimes she utilizes it. Sometimes she has a rhyme here and there. Sometimes she uses a little bit of meter and shorts and shorter meters here and there to make it more powerful. And I mean, we'll talk about how to utilize those tools in my later class if you guys sign up for it. But we're just out of time for that. But just remember that you can write poetry and that you do not need to have a meter. You don't have to have a format to write poetry. All you need is to take something that resonates within you and paint that image and that feeling so that others can see and feel what resonates within you. Remember, like I said, poetry is anything that resonates within you. Sarah Kay is somebody that is a poet that I really, really look up to. She's only about 6 years older than I am, which makes her, I don't know, she's like 23 maybe. And she has spoken at TED conferences. She's gone to India. She's done a lot of incredible things with her life. And she classifies becoming a poet into a few different steps. The first step is I can. She says, I can. That's the first step you need to take. I can do this. And like I was just saying, some people feel that they just can't write poetry, that they're not cut out for it. And what you need to do is you need to realize that you can. You can do it. No matter what, no matter if you use meter or not, you can do it. The second step is I will. I will continue to do this. So it's not just about I can. You need to continue, and you need to persevere, and you need to improve on yourself. I will continue. And the third step, which she didn't say I am. I put that in there because she put it in a longer definition, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the third step for me is I am. And this step, she says, never ends. She talks about the number one rule of being cool, right? Have you ever heard that song or heard that cliche? Cool people don't look back at explosions, It says the number one rule to being cool, and if everybody is looking at this image, yes, 100% of you are, you will see, yes, being cool, walking away from the explosion, straightening your tie, being all legitimate. That's the number one rule to being cool, is seeming unfazed. She says, somebody once told her that it's like walking through life with your fists up, ready to ward off anything that comes at you. You never get excited about things. You never get upset about things. You're just cool. I'm gonna ward off any hurt or anything that comes my way because I'm not gonna let it in. And she says that's a problem. She says that she tries to walk through life like that, with open hands. And this is a quote from her. She said, try to walk through life with hands open. Sure, it means catching all the misery and the pain, but it also means that when beautiful and amazing things fall out of the sky, that you're ready to catch them. And I thought that that's perfect. In order to write good poetry, you need to be able to express how you feel and what you see. She tells the story of what made her realize that she could write poetry. Actually, no, what made her realize that she will continue to write poetry, that second step, what launched her on that second step was when she performed a poem in front of her, it was like her 7th grade class. She wrote a poem all that was about the injustice of being seen as unfeminine. And she said, after this show, she got off stage and she was quaking. She was very, very nervous. She said after the show, she got off stage and this very, very large girl in a hoodie walked up to her and she's terrified. She's like, this girl's going to destroy me. What's going on? And the girl walked up to her and she said, and this is what she said. She said, hey, I really felt that. Thanks. That's it. And she said, and that is what made her realize that she will continue. Because poetry is the sharing of emotion. Remember, I am. Let me go into this a little bit further now that we've talked about those couple things. Sarah Kay, when she said, I am, what she talked about was infusing the work and the poetry that you're doing with the specific things that make you, you, even while those things are always changing. That means that you need to write about what resonates within you, what means things to you. You need to write poems about you. And as those things change, so will your poetry. So will the way that you write. So will your experiences. And that's why the step never ends, because you're always growing, you're always improving on yourself, and you're always changing. And that's why poetry has been around for as long as it has, because it is that way of expressing who we are, who we have been, and who we want to be. Okay, now that we've gone through that, I'm going to finish up with a couple last thoughts. The first is a challenge to you guys. That 5 things list that you made at the beginning of the webinar, I want you to go, and as quickly as possible, I want you to go and I want you to write a poem using those items. And if you are willing, I would like you to send it to me, because I would love to see what you do. It doesn't need to be perfect. It does not need to be great. Just spend a few minutes. Just make a poem about one of those things on your list. And I would love to see what you have to say. Another part of the challenge, I don't want you to limit your poetry. Write about anything. Like I said, people feel that they need to write about love, write sonnets about love. They need to feel that they write about powerful things. Write about the sticky side of tape and why tape is sticky. Write about dancing monkeys. I don't care, but just don't limit your poetry, because the moment you start to limit yourself, the moment you start to limit yourself on a poetic level, you limit yourself on every level. So don't limit your poetry. And the third part of the challenge is to use poetry as a duct. I remember when what I used to do was when I got, you know how you bottle up emotions inside and it's just like all bursting inside, and people say that they need to vent to somebody. What I started saying to my friends when they needed to vent is I said, I'll be your duct, because you vent stuff through the ducts. And so what I mean when I say use poetry as a duct is I mean that if you are ever feeling very emotionally distraught, if you're very, very angry, if you're very, very happy, or you need to release some kind of emotion, release it through your poetry. Because then you'll be able to know how you felt. You'll have this kind of memoir of your life and these steps that you've taken. And if you keep that poetry, you'll look back when you're like 36 and you will see these great things and that you did and the way that you felt when you were 15, when you were 16. This is just a list of a few activities that we did today that I really enjoy doing on a regular basis. Whenever I want to launch my creative juices, I do a 10 things list and I write a poem about it. It can be a 10 things list about anything. I do free writes using those imagery like we did with the picture. What time is it here? Okay, I have a few minutes. Free writes using imagery, metaphors, similes as much as possible. I use free writes using the tools from the Poets Toolbox, and I write. Just in general, I write. I write books, I write chapters, I write short stories, I write editorials, I write whatever. I don't care, just write. And then finally, read. A lot of the poetry that you will have gained will be gained through the experience that you've had reading. If you read a lot of Shakespeare, you know how when you read a lot, or when you go to a different country, let's say if you go to a different country for a while, you start to kind of develop their accent the local accent. The same thing when you're reading books. Whatever kind of books that you read a lot of, you will start to kind of develop into that. So I read a lot of Shakespeare. I'm doing a Bard's Challenge thing on my blog right now where I read one Shakespeare play each week and post about it. And so if you read, you'll be able to expand your vocabulary, you'll be able to expand your range of emotion, and you'll be able to expand your poetry. So reading really is something that really helps as well. Some resources that you really have to look at, and I'll add that video, like Nathan said, to this list, is Sarah Kay's TED Talks. She talks a lot about what I did, but she talks about it better. She's so much better at presenting those ideas than I am. So if you go click on that link, I really recommend watching it. It's about 18 minutes. Okay? And then others, the class that I'll be teaching at the end of this month, you'll get some info about that. Use the internet. Use any resources you have to develop your poetry. Finally, before we leave, I wanted to leave you with a couple thoughts. The reasons that I love poetry. The first is that poetry is accessible. Not everybody can read music. Not everybody can act. Not everybody can play the violin. Not everybody can dance. But everybody is capable of communicating in some way, and everybody has stories that they can share that others can learn from. And that's one of the reasons I love poetry, is because it's a means of communicating and expressing your thoughts, ideas, and emotions to others. The second is poetry is a unifier. It's like that story I just told about Sarah Kay and the girl in the hoodie. When you write poetry, if you write great poetry and you keep writing poetry, you may one day be rewarded with a room full or a world full or a book full. I guess book full is not the right word, but you may be rewarded with a room full or a world full of peers and people who, when they read your poetry, will think or say, "Hey, I really felt that. Thanks." Poetry unifies people. The third reason is because poetry means exploration. It's like that third step to becoming a poet. It continues on and on. As you change, so will your poetry. Poetry means exploring your emotions, exploring yourself, your genius, what you want to do, what you are meant to be, and what you want to become. So I hope that this webinar has helped you all develop and understand a little bit more about what poetry is and what poetry can be, and that you all are poets and that you all can be great. It's brilliant. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.